evidence-based, made just for you.
Hello, welcome back to Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy, the podcast where we have honest, evidence-based conversations about what really helps us stay connected to ourselves and to each other. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Albaugh. Today, you're joining us for episode 57. Put your phone down and pick up your life and your love. So whether you're watching live or if you're listening to the recording later, every moment of your amazing life truly does count. And I count it a true blessing and gift to have you here joining us to improve your life. I sincerely thank each and every one of you for being here. You are why this podcast exists. So we are connected. We are across so many platforms. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on X. We're on LinkedIn. If you're on X and you have a question, pop over to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or StreamYard so you can interact directly with us. A quick favor, if you're a Facebook person, follow us. The more people that follow us, the more we can do on Facebook. Visit the website. If you haven't had a chance to do that, go on the website to learn more about all the incredible episodes, 57 of them as of tonight, that you can watch anytime you want at your leisure. You can also pull up the calendar and see these crazy, incredible topics that we're going to have coming up, all the way booked out. I just booked some things into June and July, so we've got some great topics coming up that you're not going to want to miss. So go to the website. You can take us with you wherever you are. Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex is there with you wherever you go. When you're working out, you can find us on your favorite streaming service, whether that's Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. So if you're going on the road, take us with you. Learn more, improve your relationship, sex, and intimacy while you're on the road. Can't beat it. Great plan. As always, I would like to take a moment to just really welcome each and every one of you. Whatever your sexual orientation, whatever your gender identity, whatever your relationship style, this is a space created for you. And you are so welcome here. And I'm so glad you joined us or are joining us. The mission of the podcast is really, really simple. It's to empower and enlighten you with evidence-based, that scientific-based information that improves your sexual health, that deepens your loving relationships so you can live your one miraculous, wholehearted life with more love. Who doesn't want more of that? I do. Sign me up. So today, whenever you're listening, does your phone get more attention and love than your partner? Who hasn't been in a restaurant and seen a couple? The stage is set. There's candles, there's fantastic food, there's libations and wonderful things to encounter. And you look at those couples and each of them are on their phone rather than connecting through eye-to-eye contact or hand-holding and really being present to each other. I don't think there's any greater gift in the world than you can give your partner than being fully present in that moment. Now, maybe sometimes that's on the phone or that's by Zoom, but nothing replaces in-person, eye-to-eye contact. We've talked before about how that increases dopamine, scientifically proven. Actually, 20-minute hugs increase dopamine, increase some of those neurotransmitters in your body that make you want to mate, that make you want to bond with others. So it pulls us closer together into connectivity. So important. So today's episode, it's one of many of it's really about one of many problems you probably never really maybe put in the forefront of your mind, but it's an episode on putting down your phone and picking up your life and your love, your relationships. In a world where our attention is constantly pulled towards screens, notifications, and endless scrolling, I'm thankful that we have these wonderful technology things, even right in our hands, but it's easy sometimes for intimacy, presence, and real connection to slip quietly into the background. And we don't want that. These things could help us be more connected instead of less connected. So tonight, I am joined by Dr. Rose Hanna, who helps us to explore how technology shapes our relationships, for better or for worse, and what it takes to reclaim presence, mindfulness, like we've talked about before, being present, emotional closeness, and meaningful connection in our daily lives. Dr. Rose Hanna is a psychologist. She's an educator. She's a relationship expert whose work focuses on emotional presence, relational well being, and the impact of modern technology on intimacy and connection. She is widely recognized for her thoughtful, compassionate approach to helping individuals and couples understand how habits around phones, screens, and digital distractions affect communication, desire, and emotional safety. Through her clinical work, through her teaching, and the public speaking that she's done, Dr. Hanna empowers people. I love that, to create healthier boundaries with technology so they can show up more fully for themselves, for their partners, and their lives. Her insights bridge science, self awareness, and practical strategies for reconnecting in an increasingly distracted world. I couldn't be more excited that I found this wonderful, wonderful speaker to share things with us this evening. So, welcome, Dr. Rose Hanna.
Thank you for such a warm welcome. Oh, I'm so honored to be here. I'm really excited about this talk.
This is like the best topic and I was so excited about it. And then I found you because I'm like, I got to find somebody who can speak to this topic. And I can't wait to hear your wonderful presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. So, in my practice in Long Beach, California, my team and I are seeing couples who love each other deeply, but they're losing each other to their screens. So, today we're going to look at the hard data about what's really happening to our relationships in the digital age. And more importantly, what we can actually do about it. So, I'll be sharing some groundbreaking research, including a tool I've developed that can help couples assess exactly how social media is impacting their specific relationship. So stay tuned till the end because you'll get this free tool. So let's start with what I call the digital scorecard, because that's really what social media has become in our relationships. We are now experiencing something completely new in human history, what researchers are calling marriage anxiety. It's this persistent, nagging worry that if your love isn't visible online, if it's not getting likes and hearts, somehow it's not real or not enough. Now, look at this trajectory. We've gone from 20% of couples experiencing relationship anxiety before social media to 75% today. But here's what's really fascinating. See that blue line? That's digital validation seeking. It's literally tracking in parallel. So, what this is telling us is that we've outsourced our sense of relationship security to algorithms, to strangers on the internet. So rather than checking in with our partner about our relationship security, we're looking to the internet for that. In my practice, I see couples who are absolutely drowning in this. One woman told me she checks her partner's Instagram 30 times a day, not because she doesn't trust him, but because she needs to see if he's liking other women's photos more than hers. That's not crazy. That's a symptom of this new digital anxiety we're all experiencing. Studies found that couples aren't just stressed, they're showing actual depressive symptoms. We're talking about clinical level mood changes that are triggered by something as simple as your partner not hearting your story fast enough. And the numbers get even more sobering when we look at the full scope of the impact. Okay, I want you to really absorb these numbers because they're not just statistics. They represent millions of relationships struggling right now. So 65% experience conflict. So that means nearly 2/3 of couples are actively fighting about social media. And these aren't little spats. We're talking about trust destroying, sleep on the couch level conflicts. The Journal of Marital and Family Therapy found that these conflicts are as intense as infidelity arguments from 20 years ago. 72% experience disconnection. Now, this one breaks my heart. Almost 3/4 of partners feel emotionally abandoned when their partner is on their phone. You could be cuddling on the couch, but if you're scrolling, your partner's nervous system is registering it as a rejection. Family Relations documented this as present but absent syndrome. So they're physically present, but they're emotionally absent, which is like a double whammy, right? You have 2 times the risk for depression. Now, this is huge. If you're monitoring your partner's online activity regularly, you're literally twice as likely to develop depression. Now, that isn't even a correlational study. That's documented causation from cyberpsychology research. 40% are comparing themselves to other couples online. So here's the kicker. Almost half of us are comparing our real and beautiful and messy relationships to these curated fantasies online. Psychology Today calls this relationship dysmorphia. We literally can't see our relationships accurately reflected anymore. Now, I want to be clear. If you're recognizing yourself in these numbers, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're responding normally to an abnormal situation. Our brains weren't designed for this level of social comparison and digital stimulation. Which brings us to the paradox of social media. It promises connection, but it delivers something very different. Here's what's so confusing for couples. Social media isn't all bad. It genuinely can enhance relationships in some ways, which is why it's so hard to just quit cold turkey. And we can talk about the ways that it can enhance relationships. So what social media promises, right? Let's acknowledge the positives. Long distance couples can stay connected. We can celebrate milestones publicly, share our joys. Campbell and Wright's research shows that couples who use social media intentionally and together actually report some benefits. But look at these negative impacts. They're not just bigger, they're in the areas that matter most for our relationship survival. Trust drops by 60%. Self-esteem drops by 70%. Vogel's research shows that even 5 minutes of scrolling through other couples' posts can trigger inadequacy that lasts for hours. So you're sitting there scrolling another couple's posts, and just 5 minutes of that can trigger you feeling inadequate. What this graph is really showing us is that social media takes more than it gives. For every unit of connection it provides, it strips away twice as much trust, 3 times as much self-esteem. It's a net negative transaction for most relationships. I had a couple last week, been together 15 years, solid marriage, nearly divorced over Instagram. He followed his high school girlfriend, never even messaged her, just followed. It triggered a 6-month spiral that brought them to my office. That's the power we're dealing with here. And this leads directly into what I call the jealousy cycle, which is a predictable pattern that I see over and over again. If you've ever found yourself checking your partner's phone at 2 a.m. or getting into a fight about who they're following, you're not alone. You're actually in pretty good company and in a very predictable cycle that millions of couples are stuck in. So with each step, so first is monitoring. It starts innocently. Maybe you're just curious about what your partner posted, but curiosity then becomes compulsion. You're checking their stories, seeing who viewed them, looking at who they follow. This isn't trust issues. This is your attachment system trying to assess threat in a digital environment it doesn't understand, right? So you're trying to assess Is there something that threatens my relationship with my partner? That's what you're trying to do with monitoring. Then comes the anxiety. They liked someone's beach photo. What does that mean? They're online but haven't responded to your text? Your brain starts creating stories. Research shows our cortisol levels during this phase match those of actual physical threat. So your body thinks you're in danger. And the anxiety has to go somewhere, so it explodes into conflict. Why'd you like her photo? Who's this new follower? These fights feel crazy making because you're fighting about pixels on a screen, but the emotions are real. They're about safety. They're about security. They're about your sense of belonging. After the fight, both partners withdraw. You're hurt, they're defensive, and instead of coming together, you both retreat. And ironically, where do you retreat to? Often to your phones. This withdrawal confirms the original fear that triggered the monitoring, and then the cycle starts again. So here's what's insidious. That emotional distance from withdrawal makes you more likely to monitor, starting the whole cycle over. Some couples do this loop multiple times a day. But here's the good news. Once you can see the cycle, once you are aware of it, you can start to break it. That's where the strategies we'll talk about come in. So let's dive deeper into that monitoring behavior because it's more common than you might think. Before we look at this data, I want to say something really important. If you recognize yourself here, you're not a stalker, you're not crazy, you're not a bad person, you're someone trying to feel safe in a relationship in the digital age. So let's look at this data. 85% are checking posts and stories. Almost everyone does this, right? It's become so normalized that we don't even recognize it as monitoring. We don't even say that it's monitoring. But notice how you feel when you do it. What feelings come up for you when you are monitoring your partner? That slight anxiety, that need to check just one more time. That's your nervous system in threat detection mode. Nearly 3/4 of us are analyzing who's liking and commenting. We've become forensic experts in digital behavior. One client told me she could tell her husband was interested in someone by the speed of his likes. So if he likes a post within 2 minutes, that meant attraction. If it happened after an hour, that meant obligation. We're that tuned in. We also track online status. So if we see something that says last seen at 11:47 p.m., but they told me they were going to sleep at 10. We're tracking our partners like packages. Every discrepancy becomes evidence of betrayal. Now remember, these are coping mechanisms for relational anxiety. In the absence of physical cues, right? If there's no physical cues like body language, tone, presence, facial expression, our brains are grasping for any data to assess the safety of our bond. And it's actually quite adaptive. It's just misdirected. And when that monitoring doesn't give us reassurance, that's when the anxiety really kicks in. Now, this slide shows what is actually happening in your brain and body when you see that ambiguous post or that questionable like. It's not just in your head, it's an actual full body experience. So it's ambiguous, you can't really make sense of it. You see a post, you don't know what it means. Now, I want you to look at this chart. Look at the difference between the low and high social media use. It's not just a little bump. We're talking about 50, 60 point increases in every anxiety symptom. That's the difference between manageable stress and clinical anxiety. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of our brain, goes offline. When we're in that heightened level of anxiety, we literally cannot think clearly. We're catastrophizing. They like that photo. They must want to leave me. You're mind reading. They posted that to hurt me. This isn't you being dramatic. This is your brain in threat mode. And all this is happening Meanwhile, your amygdala, right? That's our limbic system. It's part of our flight and fight part of our brain. It's firing like crazy. Our heart's racing. Our stomach is churning. We can't sleep. One ambiguous Instagram story can trigger the same physiological response as a car accident. Your body doesn't know the difference between digital threat and physical threat. And here's where it really gets damaging. You start to internalize it. If they need to look at others online, I must not be enough. So your self-worth becomes tied to digital behaviors that you can't control. In therapy, we call this ambiguous loss. You're grieving a connection that's physically present, but emotionally absent. They're physically there, but emotionally they're gone. It's one of the hardest types of loss to process because there's no closure, there's no clarity. And here's where the research really gets interesting and actually hopeful. This research from Steinbach and colleagues is game-changing. They found that empathic accuracy, basically, how well we can read our partner's emotional state, is the protective factor against digital damage. Look at these two clusters. The green dots, they represent high empathic accuracy couples. So these are couples who track each other emotionally. They can read each other's facial cues. They are connecting emotionally. They're thriving despite social media. The red dots, these are low empathic accuracy couples. They're struggling even with minimal social media use. So here's what's revolutionary about this. It's not about using less social media necessarily. It's about maintaining that emotional attunement with your partner. Couples who can still read each other, who can track each other emotionally, who prioritize emotional connection, they're immune to much of the digital damage. So this is what validates what we do in couples therapy and emotion-focused therapy. When I help couples tune back into each other's emotional frequency, suddenly the Instagram likes don't matter as much. The real like, quote unquote like, that matters is the one you see in your partner's eyes. This means that there's hope. You don't have to throw your phones in the ocean, although honestly, sometimes I recommend that too. You need to strengthen your emotional connection. That's your shield against digital interference. I've seen couples transform when they get this. One couple created a practice of just making eye contact for 30 seconds before checking their phones in the morning. Simple, right? But that reset, that empathic connection speaks volumes and is a buffer. And the research shows that with the right interventions, the transformation can be dramatic. Okay, so we've looked at the problems. Now let's talk solutions, because there absolutely are solutions and they work. 70% reduction. Now this number still amazes me. Couples who go through couples therapy, emotionally focused therapy, see a 70% reduction in social media related conflict. That's not just improvement, that's transformation. We're talking about couples who are considering divorce over Instagram who are now laughing about it. The 11 sessions, Greenberg's research documented then that in just 11 sessions, that's less than 3 months, couples can completely transform their digital dynamics. It's not a quick fix, but it's not years of therapy either. So you have to make that commitment, right? Those weekly sessions for a minimum of 11 sessions. The check mark, restored intimacy. But here's what matters most. It's not just that the fighting stops. These couples report feeling closer than before social media became an issue. They've built something stronger than what they had. I worked with a couple where the wife was checking her husband's phone up to 50 times a day. 11 weeks later, she hadn't checked once in a month. Not because she was white-knuckling it, but because the need was gone, the trust was rebuilt, and the connection was restored. So we use emotion-focused therapy to help couples express their deeper needs, not stop liking other women's photos, but I need to feel special to you. Do you value me? Do you see me? When partners really hear each other at that level, the surface behaviors naturally change. Which brings me to something I'm really excited to share, a tool I've developed to help couples assess exactly where they are in this digital dilemma. So based on all this research and my clinical experience, I developed something I'm really proud of, the Social Media Jealousy Rating Scale. This isn't just another quiz, it's a research-based assessment tool that gives you a real map of how social media is specifically affecting your relationship. The scale measures 5 key areas. Look at how comprehensive this is. We're not just asking, are you jealous? We're mapping the entire digital ecosystem of your relationship. So it covers monitoring behaviors. We assess not just if you check, but the patterns with which you check, the triggers and the frequency. We assess anxiety triggers. So after you check, what specific digital behaviors spike your anxiety? And the conflict frequency. How often does social media cause actual fights? We assess emotional withdrawal. Are you disconnecting because of digital dynamics? And has social media eroded your fundamental sense of safety? So we look at trust. Here's what's powerful. Based on your specific baseline level, you can customize the therapeutic strategies that you use in therapy. A couple scoring high on monitoring but low on conflict needs very different interventions than a couple with high withdrawal but low on anxiety. I've had couples take this assessment and have breakthrough conversations just from seeing their scores. One husband had no idea his gaming streams were triggering his wife's abandonment fears. The assessment made it visible and discussable. So here's my invitation. If anything we've discussed today resonates, if you've seen yourself or your relationship in this data, take action. Take the assessment first and start from there and start talking about your feelings with your partner. And you can go to my website, rosehanna.com.
Wow, great information. And I love the tool too that you developed. That is so cool. And
I'm super excited about it.
yeah, I mean, and it seems like something that really, what's so great about it to me is that that you can kind of look at it, use it, and see where things might be helpful or not helpful, depending on. It sounds like between the subdomains and the main scores and stuff. That's really cool. I just thought it was great. So I was thinking, gosh, it was such a good presentation. I really enjoyed it. So thank you. But I was thinking, wow. So much of our emotional wellness is really literally hanging in the balance on what's happening with our social media, our phones, our different things, right? I mean, this is what you really kind of revealed to us today, that it has an impact on our self-worth and our well-being, really. And so I just thought that was really, really interesting, because I think everybody struggles with self-worth. And so realizing what an incredible impact it can have and how you need to use it very carefully and in a way that enhances your life. But gosh, it just really struck me how so much of how we feel is we're giving over the power of how we feel to these things. Who liked me? Who followed me?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I have a couple who are now, like, they created a Facebook for the both of them together, and that seemed to resolve a lot of those issues, because there was no question. There was like this, I want to be a united front with my partner to everybody. So that was one way that they managed that. But yeah, I mean, it's really significant. It's hard to separate where our sense of self-worth is when these digital things are coming into play. We used to just want to check in with our partner to get that sense of, am I valuable to you? Do you see me? Am I important? But when we're with our partner and they're on their phone and they're on their screen and they're like, yeah, And that conveys, then that conveys you're not that important to me. I'm doing something else that's more important.
Right. Yeah, it's really it is. And so and we see that too. And I know a lot of times the couples who come into me, and I'm sure you experience this too, there really is that jealousy. It's like, well, you don't spend time with me. You spend a lot of time on your phone, and then you'll hear them say, no, no, well, you do. You spend just as much time on your phone, and it's a back and forth, but a lot of conflict around time spent on social media and things like that.
Yeah, I think that the jealousy thing is really important because it's important to remember that when a person feels jealous, it's not because, oh, let's just say that they're insecure. I don't think that it's really about that. It's more
Right.
about, is there a threat to my relationship and I have to protect it? So
Mhm.
they're coming from a place of, do I perceive a potential threat? And so I want to protect it. And that's where what the jealousy is really about. And when we frame it in that way, in that lens, then the other person can say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. You're needing a lot more reassurance from me to show you that, yeah, you're really important to what I'm feeling. You know.
Because in the end, everybody in your life just wants to feel really seen, heard, and acknowledged by you, right? We all want that. And I think that's so important. And I think that's the gift of what presence gives the people we love, is that they feel seen, heard, and valued. And I think that's so important. I know I love how Maya Angelou talked about people forget what you said or what you did, but they never forget the way you made them feel. I heard someone say the reason that Mother Teresa was so effective, they said that if you knew her and you were with her, she was incredibly present with you. Not
Yeah.
just the people she served, but the people who worked with her and alongside her, that she was
Mhm.
very present. So I think presence is a powerful thing. We did an episode on that last week, and I just think it's so important.
Oh, absolutely. That presence, you can't, there's nothing that surpasses that. I think little kids will, I have a grandson now. And so if you don't give them attention, they'll physically move your face to them. Um, so I mean, even young children know how vital that is, how important that is, that presence. And that example that I gave about the couple that they have the 30-second of just eye to eye contact for 30 seconds before they look at their phones.
Mm.
That was such a buffer for them.
Mm.
When you come back, Gottman talks about the reunion. Is there that connection that, is it a hug, or is it a holding of the hands, or something that signifies I see you and you're important to me
Yeah.
before you move on to whatever it is that you need to do.
A turning towards, right? That's what Gottman always talks about, a turning towards, a positive bid. And those are such a big deal in relationships. And we know, and again, this isn't just our opinions, this isn't just our thoughts. Looked at thousands of couples over 30 years and
Yeah.
found how incredibly important positive bids and presence are. So I think it is a big deal. And so I think it's really important. And I know in my 40-year marriage, my wife always reminds me, do not be multitasking when I'm talking to you. It is not acceptable. you
Yeah,
know?
and we don't do a very good job of multitasking testing. Yeah, it's hard. Our brain isn't really wired to do that.
Yeah, and then I think of the people out there, even on your own, how some people will start their day with not picking up your phone, but instead just with centering yourself or
Mhm.
working on a little bit of self-care and self-love in the morning. Because when you think how powerful that 5 minutes versus the 5 minutes you talked about during the presentation, where 5 minutes of scrolling can trigger inadequacies, how if you take that same 5 minutes and work on yourself and centering and knowing the incredible uh, being that you are, it can really change everything. And again, we're not saying don't ever use a phone, don't ever use social media. I think
Right.
what we're trying to remind people is use it to connect you deeper and for uses that are helpful to you, but don't let it have power over your self-worth, your self-esteem,
Mhm.
and your relationships. Don't give away yourself, your soul, and your relationships.
Right, absolutely. And there are positive uses to, computer mediated communication like texting and such. And I think sometimes, particularly if someone is very shy and they have a hard time responding to conflict, sometimes it's helpful to take that time to text their response, but not send it.
Mm.
Make sure you don't send it, just, text it, reread it, give yourself a 20-minute break to, slow your mind, do some deep breathing, and then reread it again, and then modify it to, is this really my intention? Is this really going to land? What is my purpose? So in those ways, I think that social media and computer mediated communication like texting can be very helpful in relationships who that tend to be high volatile. And so if you want to take a step back, sometimes that could be helpful.
Yeah, and we've all gotten those really supportive texts, like on a day when your mother who passed away on her birthday, and your best friend sends you a little something saying, "I'm thinking of you today," and just remembering your wonderful mother and what a gift she was for us. I think so that we can use these things to really connect too. So I think it can be a wonderful thing too. And our phones as well. I mean, I have many friends who don't live anywhere near me, so doing video or phone chats with some of my closest friend does not. And so I do think that it can really connect us as well. But I think too, the power of presence, eye to eye contact, hand to hand, really nurturing the friendship in that way can be a wonderful thing too. So I'm thankful for technology. I'm glad we have it. I have a couple questions for you. The first one is this: I get anxious when my partner is on the phone, and I don't know what they're doing, bringing up insecurity and jealousy. How can I navigate these emotions in myself and in my relationship?
Okay, so you're not alone, that's for sure. So maybe not in that moment, but maybe later on, you can very gently say, "Hey, I noticed you were on your phone earlier today. I was feeling kind of insecure about it, or I'm not sure what was happening, and I want to check in with you. Are we okay?" With that, if they responded with, "Hey, thanks for bringing it up that way. That was something, had to do with work or whatever," and maybe they want to share what they were texting about. So that might be a gentle way of bringing it up. Always seek to reach the other person out of curiosity. So if that's your perspective, if you're just coming from not blame, not attacking, but really seeking clarification, seeking out curiosity. What were you feeling? It felt like you were a little bit distant from me. I just want to check in with you. How you doing? That kind of a thing is going to go a long way versus, "Hey, why aren't you what are you doing on your phone?" Like that. Put it down. My gosh, what am I, chopped liver? You don't want to come at it from there, right?
It's that how we teach people to soften that approach up, right? To soften that. Nobody wants to get that hardball of what the, whatever, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this? You always do this. I think softening that can really help, and coming at it in a loving way. I think too, for your own self-exploration, what are those emotions, and allowing them to sit in you and think about them, and where do they come from? The insecurity, the jealousy, and then challenging, especially the insecurity, challenging that, knowing that you are enough. So I think the self-worth can be really important. But I like that question. I thought it was a good one.
I love that you said challenging. I love that, because you can say, is there evidence to suggest that this person is cheating on me? Like, where is this coming from? Is there because I have a history of something that's happened in my past? And that's certainly something to consider. But I'm not saying that you should gaslight yourself for your own emotions. Whatever you're feeling is completely valid.
Yes.
But being able to sit with it and try to understand it is really helpful.
So important. And then I thought this was a really good question as well. We've started sitting on the couch at night, scrolling separately instead of talking like we used to. It feels like we're drifting. What are some small, realistic ways to rebuild connection?
Ah, okay. So, what if you had a conversation with your partner and said, "Hey, let's do 10 minutes of no phones, and we're just going to sit and hold each other's hands and then talk about our day." That's it. Just 10 minutes. Just start small. Even start 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Start somewhere. Maybe it's let's go for a walk together and chat. Start small, but have that conversation first. How do you feel that we're both on our phones and we're not really talking? Are you feeling distant? Because I am. How are you feeling about it?
Mm, I love that. I think that's a great idea. And like you said, it's like when you start exercise. Don't start with like knocking it out of the ballpark and you're doing an hour a day. Start with a couple minutes and then work your way up to something that feels pretty comfortable for both of you. But
Right.
I think that's really really a good idea. Definitely. And there's so many conversations you could have. You could talk about if you like look, if you go on your computer, it'll give you a bunch of conversation starters for sure. But you could just talk about what gave you hope today? What was the most hopeful thing that happened to you today? Or what was your biggest challenge, or whatever, or what are you grateful for today? So many things that you could do.
Yep. Yeah. What was your favorite vacation or trip that you've ever taken? What
And
is something? Yeah.
that savoring, they've actually shown through research that savoring, reliving and savoring that vacation increases happiness.
Isn't
So
that funny?
so cool, savoring. And we do that, right? We do it before we go. We're like, oh, I can't wait to go, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then afterwards we're like, remember when? I think savoring, recapturing those beautiful moments in your life, that's
Right.
a great suggestion.
Yeah. Or what do you hope to do in 5 years? What do you want? What do you see? What dream together about the future? Yeah.
hmm
Those are so valuable.
And that Gottman calls that building shared meaning.
Yes, that's right.
Again,
Gottman's
research based for sure, for
for
sure.
sure.
Such good stuff, definitely. Gosh, we could talk about this all evening, and I love that you shared the tool, and the tool will help people in the future. And it just was such a great, great presentation. So, but
Oh,
I'm gonna, as I do, I'm gonna go to our centering exercise now, and it's a lot to take in. So that's where we're gonna go next. So now, as we come to the end of this conversation, I'd like to invite you into a brief closing pause. Pause. We've talked about this. Take a little bit of time for you. If you can, take a moment to notice your breath. Get comfortable and notice your breath and your breathing. You don't need to change it at first. Just notice your breathing. Now slowly inhale through your nose and gently exhale through your mouth, letting the day soften just a little. Bring to mind one person in your life who matters to you. You know who that person is: a partner, a friend, a family member, or even yourself. Ask yourself quietly as you continue to breathe deeply, how do I usually show up when I'm with them? How do I usually show up when I'm with them? And then gently ask, how would I like to show up? Just a little more present, a little more available. How would I like to show up just a little more present and a little more available to that person I love? Take another slow breath in Exhale gently. Imagine setting your phone down. Not forever, just for a moment. Setting the phone down. Making space for eye contact, for listening, for touch, for real connection. Your phone will be there when you're finished. Let that intention settle into your body. Setting your phone down just for a moment, making space for eye contact, listening, touch, real connection. One last breath in and a slow, steady exhale through your mouth. As you move on with your day, see if you can carry even one moment of presence into your next interaction. Sometimes putting your phone down is how we pick our lives, and our love back up and make it a priority. I can't think of anything greater in the world to invest in than your beautiful, miraculous self and your loving relationships with others. Well, Vic, I know we have a great episode coming up next week with my guest host, Dr. Susan Kellogg-Spott, who's going to guest host for me next week. So tell us about it.
In this guest-hosted episode, Dr. Susan Kellogg-Spott and pelvic health physical therapist Kelly Keene explore how the pelvic floor muscles impact orgasm, pleasure, and sexual satisfaction. They break down anatomy and physiology in an accessible way. They discuss common pelvic floor issues, tightness, weakness, pain, or poor coordination, and explain how pelvic floor physical therapy can improve sexual function across the lifespan. Packed with practical insights, this episode empowers listeners to understand their bodies and reclaim pleasure and pelvic health. Join us on February 10th at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn more.
That voice, Vic. Wow. But it's going to be a great episode. I'm really excited about it. We all, I know many of the listeners love having Dr. Susan on, and she will be guest hosting, and I'm excited about her pelvic floor physical therapy guest. So tune in. But today, gosh, such great information to help us really understand better some of the issues that arise and how to really combat and make sure we're using all of our technology and media to enhance our relationships in our lives rather than take away from it. So, gosh, I just can't thank you enough for such a wonderful presentation. It was great. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we close out?
You know, I always tell my couples to check in with each other, try to track your partner emotionally, and honor that, whatever they're feeling, and share what you're feeling.
Yes, I love it. So listeners, we just want to remind you that you are so worthy. You are so worthy of love and belonging. And so even if it's love of self, I hope you find exactly what you're looking for and that you're able to use all your technology and your social media to enhance and really broaden and empower you to live your greatest life. So thank you so much for taking time to join us. And my hope and prayer for you is that all the things you want happen in the way you want. Have a great one, and thanks for joining us.
As Dr. Jeff talks about sex